Well, it's good to see you guys today. How are y'all doing? I'll tell y'all the goal that we had, that Compassion had for us. Is that okay? I don't mind if we blew it out the water. Wasn't it awesome? 193 kids got sponsored. It's pretty amazing. So they came here and they run all of their analysis. I mean, they sponsor 1.9 million kids. So they're constantly, actually, last week we weren't the only church that had the Compassion experience. There are actually a bunch of them all across the country. So they do this all the time. They also know their markets, and they know what it takes to pull off a successful one, and they know what they can expect and what success should be. So for the size of our community, this is what they anticipated. They thought it would be a huge win if they got 80 kids sponsored. 193. Or 2, I can't remember. Isn't that amazing? Even if you were here last week, Samuel Orlando, who grew up in the Compassion experience, and we watched the video, then he came up. That was pretty neat, wasn't it? Even he said, he's like, man, I don't know what's happening with you guys, but it's some really good stuff. And it is. And so today I want to talk to you about the next season of our lives. This is more individual. I think next week you'll hear more about Soul 30. I'm actually really excited about it. That series has come out of really doing Whole 30, which is like this diet thing. And but it's taking 30 days to a cleaner you, and spending time with God and letting Him clean us up. So that's what Soul 30 is about. In fact, next week, one of my really close friends who's also a pastor at a really awesome church in Texas outside of Fort Hood, he'll be here, he'll be speaking, I'll be here with him, so I'm really excited about that. And we are wrapping up this week, the last week of summer at COTK. Did y'all enjoy it? Hey, can y'all give me a timer back there, because I got so much to do that I don't want to go over, because we have a 12:30 service too, which has been awesome. Pastor Stephen Martin from Vintage will be here, and man, it's his life message. So it just so happened when I asked him to speak Soul 30, it corresponded perfectly with what his life message is on kind of his past and family and upbringing, and how God's delivered him from that. But today, as we wrap up COTK, the summer at COTK, we're going to talk about a new season, and we're going to talk about it from the perspective of one person. And the new season we see in Joshua chapter 1 is when the nation of Israel is on the very edge of what God has promised them, that promised land. And I don't know if you know the story or not, but Moses was the deliverer. The nation of Israel had spent 400 years in Egypt, the vast majority of it as slaves. And God sent Moses as a deliverer, and Moses delivered the nation of Israel from slavery, and then they wandered around in the wilderness for 40 years, and then he took them to the edge of the promised land, on the eastern edge of Israel. And today you can actually go there. The eastern edge of Israel, really, he took them the back way around, and they climbed up the mountains that are alongside the Jordan River. It's plains in Israel, and then it's mountains in Jordan, and they're standing in the nation of Jordan, what is today Jordan. On the mountain, there's about 6 million of them, and they're looking down into the land that God has promised them on the other side of the Jordan River, and there sits Jericho. And this is where we pick up the story on what it looks like to go into a new season. In fact, I titled this message, It's a New Season. I don't know if y'all remember that old Israel Houghton song, It's a new season, it's a new day, fresh anointings coming your way. I just like singing. I don't sing well, but I enjoy it. And I like that song. It stuck with me because I really feel like we're really entering into a new season. And it's not just because summer's ending and school's starting in 2 weeks. Isn't that crazy? School starts in 2 weeks, guys. Isn't that awesome? All these kids in school. So great. We love them. It's a new season. Yeah. Joshua 1 and 2. This is how the season begins for Joshua. After the death of Moses, the Lord's servant, the Lord spoke to Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' assistant. And this is what God says to Moses. This is how he knows the season's changing. Moses, my servant, is dead. So often when we are on the precipice of change and there's a new season that's coming, we know it because something's died in our life. And we can focus on that death, or we can focus on the season that's coming that God has for us in the midst of it. The nation's in mourning, but God speaks to Joshua and he says, Moses, my servant, is dead. Therefore, the time has come. Everybody say, the time has come. You ready? The time has come. The time has come. When there's areas of death in our life, we have to recognize that is the time for us to go to the Lord because He has something for us. The time has come for you to lead these people, the Israelites, across the Jordan River and into the land that I'm giving them. Look at the 3rd verse. Okay, we're not going to look at the 3rd verse. That's right. You know why? Because I didn't put it. I'm sorry. I was thinking of something else. A new season. Something's died, but something's about to give birth. I want you to think about this from the perspective of the nation of Israel. 40 years they've wandered in the wilderness. All of those who were the generation that came out of slavery, they've all died. Now it's all these kids. About 6 million standing on the edge of a promise. I really believe that for many of you here today, that's where you are. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of people get stuck. They hear the promise of God, they see the promise of God, but they never get to the promise of God. I just pray that you can get there and know what it takes. Here's what you got to see. Verse 10 and 11. Then Joshua commanded the officers of Israel, go through the camp and tell the people to get their provisions ready. In 3 days you will cross the Jordan River and take possession of the land that the Lord your God is giving you. You'll take possession of the land that the Lord your God is giving you. Let me just tell you right now that if you want to get to the place that God's promised you, this is just lanyard. This isn't even the part of my message, because I'm not going to be talking about the nation of Israel so much as I am about another person that's affected by them entering into the place that God's promised. So here's what you got to know. You better get your provisions ready. In other words, you better get your stuff together. You better get ready. And then you have to recognize that if you're going to get to the place that God's promised, it doesn't just magically happen, that there's a moment where you're going to have to cross the river. It's going to, maybe it'll seem a little scary, a little freaky, and you're going to have to take possession of what God is giving you. How do we know that there's a new season that's coming? What are some indicators, some things biblically we can even recognize that we can see? Well, here's the first one. You can see that God's on the move. You can see that God's on the move. You can just see it. You just know it. And then really you can sense that something is out of the ordinary. Like you can see some things are starting to change in the natural. That's why Joshua was saying, listen, y'all need to get ready. We're about to go take possession. Like they knew, like, okay, we can see God's up to something here. We're not just looking at the promise. We're about to step into it. But you can see that God's on the move, but you can sense that something's out of the ordinary. Everything's not quite right. And here's the third thing that you've got to know. You experience emotions from not knowing what's next. Because anytime you're stepping into a new season, you're always going to experience the unknown, and that can be really freaky. It can be exciting and fun and wonderful if you ever moved. Anybody ever moved and moved unexpectedly, like in a short amount of time, like one season's ending and the next thing you know, you're about to step into another season, and then you're getting into that season and realize it happens like that. Anybody ever have fast moves in your life? We did. We went from not knowing, knowing that God had called us to plant a church and not knowing where, to 6 weeks later, we had bought $1 million building, and me never having preached before, and we've uprooted and moved our whole family from Lafayette to Lake Charles. 6 weeks. That's crazy. That's crazy. I look back and go, what was I thinking? That was nuts. But it was obviously a God deal. And let me just tell you, sometimes when you're in those moments when you realize that God's on the move, that there's some things that are out of the ordinary, there's this opportunity to freak out or to have faith. And I'd be lying if I said there weren't moments when there were some freak out fear moments rather than faith moments. These are just indicators. There's a new season coming. But how you deal with it determines the destiny that God has for your life. I'm not here to talk about the nation of Israel because we know what was promised and we know that they were going to get it. I'm here to talk about one other person. It's the person Rahab, because as I was preparing for this message, that new season, like always and forever, it just fascinates me that so many people were lined up on the mountains, on the mountaintops, looking down into the valley, about to take the place that God had called them to. But I really had never given much thought to the perspective of the people in Jericho, who were the first city. When you're on the mountains of Jordan looking into the valley where they were crossing, you can see Jericho. In fact, they found the ruins of Jericho relatively recently, in the last 25 years or so, and so they know exactly where it is. And in fact, there's actually a modern town of Jericho built right by it. And so you can actually, in the desert plains, you can drive along the Jordan River, and if you're driving north, you can see the mountains on your right and you can see Jericho on your left. And the nation of Israel is looking down on Jericho going, well, that's our first obstacle. But the people of Jericho were looking up to the mountains, where I'm sure they saw the activity, the fires, the scurrying around of 6 million people on the mountaintops, and they're thinking to themselves, something's happening. They saw that God was up to something. They sensed that this was not normal. And they were experiencing emotions that are associated with the unknown. And one person in particular is who we're going to talk about today, and it's Rahab. And she's the first person in Jericho to encounter the people of God. So let's take a look at that in Joshua 2, 1 through 3. It says, "Then Joshua secretly sent out 2 spies from the Israelite camp at the Acacia Grove. He instructed them, scout out the land on the other side of the Jordan River, especially around Jericho. So the 2 men set out," I love this, "and they came to the house of a prostitute." Wait, we can't have read that right, because these are 2 men that represent the one true God, dispatched by Joshua himself. And they go to Jericho, and they set out, and they came to where? The house of a prostitute named Rahab, and they stayed there that night. Am I the only one that finds that comical and a little ironic? Look at verse 2. "But someone told the king of Jericho, some Israelites have come here tonight to spy out the land." So this is important because Jericho was a city-state and it had a king. The spies have snuck in, and they spent the night at a house of ill repute with a prostitute named Rahab. The king finds out. Look at verse 3. "So the king of Jericho sent orders to Rahab, 'Bring out the men who've come into your house, for they've come here to spy out the whole land.'" The king of Jericho sent orders to Rahab. The king of Jericho sent orders to Rahab. I mean, if I'm in Jericho and I'm looking at the mountains and I'm seeing all the people and I'm the king, or I'm just a citizen even, I'm realizing this is going to be bad. We better get ready. And then if you're the king and you hear some spies have come in, they've gone into Rahab's house, of course you're going to say, "Bring them out," because your city-state is about to get crushed unless you put up some sort of heroic defense. And it was a strong, strong walled city. So they're thinking, this is a fortified city. We may be able to deter them and maybe even beat them. So the king sent orders to Rahab. How do we step into that new season? From the perspective of Rahab, this had to have been a logical and understandable request of the king. You've got the spies, give them to me. I mean, I'm sure the king thought this is no problem. She's going to hold them there until we can get there. She's going to figure it out. She'll get them there. But I'm here to tell you that Rahab had a little bit different plan. Look at verses 4 through 6. It says, "Rahab had hidden the 2 men, but she replied, 'Yes, the men were here early, but I didn't know where they came from. They left the town around dusk because the gates were about to close, and I don't know where they went. If you hurry, you can probably catch up with them.'" Look at verse 6. "But actually, she had taken them up to the roof and hidden them beneath the bundles of flax she had laid out." Let me tell you how you step into a new season. Here it is. Here's the first one. There's 3 simple, very simple things. The first one is this: prioritize the plans of God. Prioritize the plans of God. Look at verse 3. Can we put verse 3 back up there? Verse 3. "So the king of Jericho sent orders to Rahab. Bring out those men." That moment had to be a defining moment for her, because she had to make a decision. Which king am I going to obey? The king in the place where I live, the one who's on the throne of Jericho, the city in which I live, or am I going to obey the King of Kings, and am I going to prioritize the plans of the one true God? And let me just tell you right now that is what all of us, if we want to step into a new season, better be doing, prioritizing the plans of God. And so often we will say, well, I would never prioritize the plans of Satan in my life. Like, Lucifer, be gone. And let me just tell you right now, Lucifer's probably not anywhere around here. Like, we're in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and I know God's doing some really cool stuff, but like, Lucifer's just he's not omnipresent. He's at one place at one time. He's not like God. And I'm just saying, like we just want to, devil, I rebuke you, and I will never prioritize your plans. And I'm just thinking to myself that most of the time, that's not the king whose plans that we're following. You know who the king is that we're following those plans? A lot of times it's just us, because we're on the throne of our own heart. And that we've made comfort king. We've made convenience king. And that we've made our ways our ways. And in reality, we're the one that we've placed on the throne that's reserved for God in our lives. I don't say that to be condemning. I pray that there's a conviction that washes over us, that we recognize that every moment of every day, we have an opportunity to align our heart, our mind, our soul, our spirit with the priorities of God or not. And let me just say that it's usually not as clear as this. Imagine Rahab in that moment. The king has told you to bring the men. And in that moment, she makes a decision. She tells the king, I don't know where those guys are from. They're gone. She prioritizes God's plan over hers. Here's my question to you. Do you do that? Do you do that? Prioritize the plans of God. Look at verses 7 through 8. It says, so the king's men went looking for the spies all along the road leading to the shallow crossings of the Jordan. Remember, she's lied and said, they're not here. She's prioritizing God's plan. She's siding with the people of God. She's siding with the one true God. As soon as the king's men had left, the gates of Jericho was shut. Before the spies went to sleep that night, Rahab went up on the roof to talk with them. Look at verse 9. I know the Lord has given you this land, she told them. We're all afraid of you. Everyone in the land is living in terror. Let me just tell you, if you are living in the place of fear, you are not living in the presence of God. If you live in the place of fear, where your life is marked by fear and it's a motivating factor in your life, you may call yourself Christian and show up to church every week, and I'm glad that you do on both those counts, but the reality is that if you are being led by the Spirit of God, you're not going to operate in fear, you're going to operate in faith. That doesn't mean that you're not scared, but there's a difference between being scared and being fearful. Scared is when I'm at the edge of a cliff and I look down and I realize that if I took another step, I'd die. That's scared. But fearful is never walking up a set of steps because you're concerned that you're going to fall down and break your hip, and that now it's this overriding thing that just begins to eat away at your heart and soul, and you feel hopeless, like you can't go anywhere or do anything. Am I making any sense here? Are you living in the place of faith, or are you living in the place of fear? Look at verse 10. For we've heard how the Lord made a dry path for you through the Red Sea when you left Egypt. And we know what you did to Sihon and Og, the two Amorite kings east of the Jordan River, whose people you completely destroyed. Look at verse 11. No wonder our hearts have melted in fear. No one has the courage to fight after hearing such things. And this is why she's able to side with God and tell him everything, because she's had the revelation. For the Lord your God is the supreme God. You will never prioritize the plans of God for any duration unless you have a revelation of who he is to you. Is he the supreme God? Let me just tell you, for seasons, you can prioritize his plans and his ways, but you'll never continually and consistently walk in them until you come to the place of revelation of who you are and who God is. And this is the place where Rahab is. She's able to stick her neck out, lie to the king of Jericho, and say, no. And she's prioritizing the plan of God, the people of God, because she's had an encounter with God. The Lord your God is the supreme God of the heavens above and of the earth below. Have you had that revelation? How do you step into a new season? You prioritize the plans of God, but my prayer for you today is that you have a revelation of who God is and that he is supreme in your life. And you have a revelation of who you are and that you don't live in the place of fear and you don't live in a false humility. That doesn't mean pride. That means that you don't live in the place where you beat yourself up and think that you're nothing. Because the reality is that we can live pretty stupidly, can't we? Can you live stupid? And that you don't beat yourself over stupid, you surrender yourself to the one who has a purpose and a plan for you. Prioritize the plans of God. Here's the second thing. You ready? Partner with the people of God. Step into a new season. This isn't complex, but it is profound. The simplicity. God, you're supreme. I'm siding with you. The second thing, partnering with the people of God. What does that look like? Well, here's what it looked like for Rahab. Verses 12 through 14 is what we'll look at. In verse 12, she says to them, now swear to me by the Lord that you will be kind to me and my family since I've helped you. Did she help those spies? Did she help the spies? She saved their lives. I mean, I don't know why they went to her house, but they did. She was the one who saved their lives. She stuck her neck out for these people because in saving their life, hers was at tremendous risk. Swear to me, be kind to my family since I've helped you. And look at this. She's saying, this is like quid pro quo. This is like tit for tat. Like, give me some guarantee that when Jericho is conquered, you'll let me live along with my father, my mother, my brothers and sisters, and all of their families. In other words, she's like, listen, we got to make a deal here because I saved your behinds. And like, it's cost me everything. Like, if the king finds out what I've done and that you guys are alive, he's going to kill me, and it's probably not going to be fast and painless. So I need some guarantee that since I've helped you, you're going to help me. Is there selfishness in that? Yeah, there is. There is, but there's also tremendous wisdom because she recognizes that though they're just people and that they can help her, that they're also connected to a God who has a purpose and a plan for them, and she wants that purpose and plan for them, and she wants to be a part of that. And let me just tell you, when you begin to partner with the people of God, something tremendous happens. Look at verse 14. This is what they say: we offer our own lives as a guarantee for your safety. If you don't betray us, we'll keep our promise and be kind to you when the Lord gives us the land. We offer our own lives. What does it look like to partner with the people of God? That means you're both willing to lay down yourself for the other. It's very rare, truthfully. We literally have hundreds of people in small groups, and that's awesome, that's great and everything. My prayer is that you can find some people that you lay down your life with and that you partner with them. Proverbs 27:17 is iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. How do you sharpen something that's dull? You got to grind on it, and that's painful. How does spiritually you sharpen each other, emotionally, practically? Well, you're going to have to do what Ephesians 5:14 says. You're going to have to speak the truth in love to each other. You're also going to have to receive the truth that's being spoken to you. And let me just tell you right now, that can be tremendously painful. Are you partnering with the people of God? What does it look like to partner with someone? That means you're probably going to have to give up a couple things. The first one is this: it's pride. Because real relationship, pride is the killer. Because pride is concerned about a good face and a good front. Pride is concerned about me getting my way. Pride is concerned about me winning. If you're going to truly partner with people and get to the place where you can grow together, the people of God, that you're going to have to come to the understanding, and understanding is the key, that it's not about me, and the other person's needs become more important than your own. Are you partnering with the people of God? Let me just tell you, if you're going to do it, you're going to have to lay down pride. You cannot have any pride and expect for the partnership to be healthy. It can be very unhealthy. I've seen a lot of partnerships that are unhealthy. Have y'all? I've seen a lot of marriages that are unhealthy. Have y'all? I've been in a marriage that's unhealthy. Have y'all? My new marriage is way better. It's just the same woman. And you know what the problem was? I kept telling her for years, baby, if you just fix this, you just fix this, if you just do this, like it would all be better. And then God showed up and I realized how proud and arrogant I was, and he dealt with me. So many people walk away from the people of God, God relationships, because they've operated in pride. You have to give up that pride if you're going to partner with people, the people of God. And sometimes you're going to have to give up some people that you know are dragging you to the place where you become an enemy of God. Rahab broke the relationship with the king of Jericho because she realized that if she sided with him, if she walked the path that he was walking, she was making herself an enemy of God, and she didn't want it. How do you step into a new season? Prioritize God's plans. I pray you have a revelation of how big he is. I pray that you know that Jeremiah 29:11, it's one of my life verses, is so true. Very simple, and it just says, I know the plans I have for you, not for calamity and destruction, to give you a future and a hope. Have you prioritized God's plans? Have you partnered with God's people? If you're partnered with God's people, it's only going to be healthy to the degree that you're willing to give up your pride. Are there some people that you need to cut ties with? It doesn't mean that you stop loving them. It means you stop listening to what they're saying on what your life and the direction it's headed should be like. Does this make sense? Are you partnering with the people of God? Are you putting God's ways and his plans first? And here's the last thing. You're going to step into a new season. Prepare the place of God. Prepare the place of God. Look at verses 15 through 18. This is what we see. Remember, they've just made this deal. I laid down my life for you. What are you going to do for me? We're going to lay down our life for you. And if you keep your end of the bargain, we'll keep ours, and we'll make sure that you and your family is safe. Then, since Rahab's house was built into the town wall, she let them down. This is their last interaction. She let them down by a rope through the window. You got that? So now they're escaping. She lied to the king. The king is out looking. They've shut up the whole city, and they've searched the city, but they haven't found the men. They have people out in the countryside, and Rahab is now letting them go. Look at verse 16. Escape to the hill country, she told them. Hide there for 3 days from the men searching for you. So she tells them to go west. That's the hill country. If you ever drive through Jericho, the hill country is to the west, a little southwest. Well, the men probably thought that they were going back to the mountains. She told them, don't go there. Hide there for 3 days from the men searching for you. Then, when they've returned, you can go your own way. Look at verse 17. Before they left, the men told her, we'll be bound by the oath we've taken only if you follow these instructions. Listen to me carefully. These instructions are important. When we come into the land, you must leave this scarlet rope hanging from the window through which you let us down. And all your family members, your father, your mother, your brothers, all your relatives must be here inside the house. The rope that she let him down with was red. Why is that significant? Why would that even be mentioned in the Bible that it was a scarlet rope? I mean, y'all get the story, right? Nation of Israel's on the edge, about to go into the place they promised. The city of Jericho is the first place that's got to be dealt with. Jericho's freaking out. The people of Israel are excited, but Joshua sends out 2 spies. They go to this prostitute's house to spend the night there. The king finds out, sends his soldiers over. She hides them up on top of the roof, and then they escape out the scarlet rope. She had a red rope, a big red rope that her house was on top of the wall that she lowered down so they could escape. And the deal was, listen, you saved our behinds, we're going to save your whole family. But we got to see the red rope. Why does it say the red rope? Why not just rope? It's really interesting. Throughout the Bible, we see this thread. Actually, there's a doctrine of the thread, the thread. I'm just going blank on what it is. It's the scarlet thread, the theology of the scarlet thread that we see in the tabernacle was woven. The scarlet thread as a reminder that blood covers sins. We see Rahab with a scarlet rope hanging, and that is the sign of her salvation. We see the blood of Jesus represented all through Scripture. And the scarlet rope is significant in large part because rope, the word, and I wrote it down, it's a Hebrew word, tiqua, T-I-Q-U-A-H. Tiqua has 2 meanings. It has 2 meanings. Pronounced the same, spelled the same. In the Bible, it's used often in ancient Hebrew. But in Joshua 2:18, it's the only time that it's used by its second definition, which is rope or cord or thread or measuring line. Do you know what the scarlet rope, it's the same word, do you know what it meant most of the time? It meant hope. It meant hope. When we come into the land, the hope of Jesus hanging, that's what brought salvation. That was a sign for the nation of Israel. Let me wrap up the story. Israel does come down into the valley, all of them. They cross the Jordan River supernaturally because it's the flood season and it's a pretty raging river. Nobody would have been able to cross it without the miracle. The whole nation crosses. And then for 6 days, the whole nation marches around Jericho. It's a large walled city. The whole nation in absolute silence. All they do is walk around the city once and they go back to their camp. And the next day, walk around once, go back to their camp, all in silence. But on the 7th day, they march around 7 times. And I imagine the spies every day are looking at that scarlet rope that's hanging from Rahab's window, On the seventh day, on the seventh time, there's been an absolute silence. At the end, the trumpeters blow, and everybody at the top of their lungs in the nation of Israel, literally millions, they all shout, they scream, they praise God. They're yelling and screaming, and something happens. The whole city begins to shake. I don't know if it's an earthquake. I don't know if it's a supernatural earthquake. All I know is the city walls begin to shake, and the city walls fall down. And the warriors go in, and it's the end of Jericho, with the exception of one small section of the wall. Guess what didn't fall? The one house that had the scarlet thread hanging from it. Why? Because Rahab had prepared a place for God to move. She didn't go to a church. She didn't move her whole family to the nation of Israel up in the mountains. Right where she was, she prepared a place for God to move. Maybe today, right where you are, God's got a place for you. Let's bow our heads. And if you're here and you know that you've not been prioritizing the plan of God, you've not really partnered with the people of God, I'm just saying today, prioritize God's purpose and plan for your life. Make a place for Him right now. Jesus says in the book of Revelation, He says, "Behold, I stand at the door and I knock." He's knocking at the door of your heart. This is what it's talking about. He says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. He who hears my voice and opens the door, I'll come in and we'll have fellowship together." Maybe Jesus is knocking on the door of your heart today. If you're here and you know that you've not prioritized the plans of God, and you feel like you've just been looking down the mountain into the valley and almost bitter because you feel like the season of promise never ever comes, prioritize His plans, make a place for Him right now. And if you're here and you're far from Him, He's knocking at the door of your heart. And you know what He's saying? He's saying, trust me. Trust me. My life verse is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. It says, trust in the Lord with all of your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He'll direct your path. You'll never be able to walk the path that God has for Him until you trust Him and His plan for you. If you're here and you know that's you today, I'm not going to embarrass you, but I want to pray for you right where you are. That's you and you say, Pastor, today I know that God's calling me. I can just sense that He's tugging on me right now, and I need to surrender to Him and His purpose and plan for me. Right where you are, just raise your hand and say, Pastor, that's me. I know it's me. Thank you. I see you over here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I see you. You can put your hands down. You know, Jesus was asked by a teacher of religious law. He said, how do I inherit eternal life? And Jesus said, you'll have to be born again. And this teacher of religious law said, there's no way I can go back in my mama's womb. Not going to happen. What are you talking about? And Jesus says, how do you not know, a teacher of religious law, that there's two births? The first one is physical and the second one's spiritual. Perhaps today that's you and you need a spiritual rebirth. And you recognize that God's calling you to His purpose and plan. It begins with a recognition of your sin. The Bible says that it brings us death. Certainly it does in this world. We can see the ramifications of what sin does through abuse, addiction, neglect, all of it. But there's an eternal death as well, and that's never God's heart. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. Jesus took your place on that cross to pay the punishment for your sin so that you could know Him. If you raised your hand, actually, let's all of us, can we just pray? Just pray, dear Jesus, I turn to you. I believe you paid the price for my sin. I believe your blood washes it away. I surrender to you. May your purpose and plan be mine. I give you all. In your name, Jesus, I pray. Amen. Man, how awesome it is to see so many people give their heart to the Lord. That's why we exist, because I want you to walk in the fullness that God has for you. Listen, if you prayed that prayer, let me just encourage you a couple things. At the end of service, our ministry team's going to be up here. If you need prayer, come up here. And if you raise your hand, I'm telling you, partner with somebody. They have a heart for you. The second thing is either with a connection card or on the app, you can go ahead and let us know what's going on. You can connect with people in the decision that you made. And we just want to be a blessing and help to you if you need that. And I'm telling you, if you raised your hand, don't walk out of here without praying with someone and letting us know what's going on. I say it all the time, but it's so true. I love being your pastor, and the best is yet to come. God bless.